so much, always asking God to help me to find the balance because I just felt like I couldn't do it. So that was the first thing I had to come to God about and just kind of get okay in my heart with, that I would be the kind of student that would need to put the extra time in, but I could do it. Okay. And once I started being okay with that, like stop watching that my sister could study and just take a test and know that, okay, you can't do that. You got to study and then get up in the morning, study some more and study before class. That was just where I had to learn to be. So that was the first part of the struggle for me. And the first part, I would say, of my detour of learning, like, you could do this, but you're just going to have to do it different.
Thank you for tuning in to the Redefining YEW podcast. On today's episode, I am joined with very special guest, Mrs. Marja Drye. She and I will be talking about how to champion the tumultuous seasons of twists and turns with grace and humility. This is an episode you do not want to miss. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Redefining YEW podcast, episode 4. And I am so excited because we have yet another guest. To your left or your right, I'm not sure where she is on your screen, ladies and gentlemen, but we have the beautiful Miss Marja Drye with us. And before we get into all the formal introductions, do me a favor, go ahead, and if you are not already subscribed and you're watching us physically, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We want you to join the fam bam. Be notified when things are going down. If you are listening, thank you for coming back. Thank you for breathing by our way, but go ahead and follow the podcast as well. We drop an episode bi-weekly, so you don't want to miss the good things here. Like, comment, all the good things, be engaged. We're not shy. We're going to talk to you in the comments, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, Miss Marja, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. I so appreciate this opportunity.
Yes.
Just excited to be here. And I'm doing great this morning. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. So let me tell you how I know Marja. So we actually met at church when we were at Mount Zion in Oakland. Oakland is like this small, teensy-weensy little city right on the outskirts of Orlando. Our spiritual parents, the Brooks family, connected us, and we have just been connected ever since.
Yes, definitely. And I've been following your journey, and you're coming along, and I'm so proud of you. I've been to a few of your events, and they've been awesome. So it was just an honor, and I just so appreciated you thinking of asking me to come on to chat with you.
Absolutely. And y'all gonna find out why she's here in just a second. So let me tell you all about Marja, the formality. So she is a marriage and family therapist. So she's got credentials, okay? She knows what she's talking about. When she's talking about these things, she knows what she's talking about, not from just a personal, but a professional standpoint. She's done that now for about 6 or 7 years. She's actually a coach at heart, though. So when you see her like pushing and you can do this and encouraging, she's like a light carrier, y'all. And you're going to find that in just a minute. She's a light carrier, a woman of faith, a woman of God. She loves people. And that's going to be evident when you hear this conversation. She is just such a gem, y'all. She's a boy mama through and through.
That's so true.
Boy moms. And she is a wife of 19, almost 20 years. Yeah. Almost 20 years, y'all. So she's been in this thing. She's doing this marriage thing. But one of the things that I absolutely love about Marja is that she's so fly, y'all. Y'all can't see the whole fit, but I know she's fly from head to toe. Okay. Every time that I see Marja, I'm gonna be like Marja when I get real grown, like grown, I'll be like Marja. I'll be like Marja. Yes, y'all. This is Mrs. Marja Drye. So, Marja, I know I told them a little bit about your credentials and things like that, but kind of share your heart with people. Like, who is Marja? How did she become this person?
Yeah, so it's like you said, I always have a love people. That's one of my favorite things is people. I love connecting with people. Originally, I thought I wanted to be a teacher because I like kids and I like working with people. And I did work in the education field for a long time before I finalized my degree in psychology. But as I was working with students and I was working with people, I just always got the vibe that I was more focused on who they were and who they wanted to be and how they wanted their lives to be and how I encourage them and inspire them to be more and do more. So I was like, okay, so the psychology is still there. I need to go back, get my master's, figure out how I could tap into that more. Because I found as an educator, I was always leaning more on the coaching side and encouraging and counseling, very empathetic. And that was difficult for me in the beginning because I was like, okay, God, why are you leading me to be a therapist when I'm so in tune with people's emotions? Am I really going to be a healthy therapist? How am I going to work with people and be able to find a balance and a separation? Because like even news and stuff like that weighs down my energy. Like if something bad happens and I don't even know the person, my husband's like, babe, you don't even know that person. It still carries that energy for me. Yeah. So what I've learned is that I was given that as a blessing from God so I can be more empathetic and understand people's struggle, but also find ways to support them and to encourage them around what they're going through. So I think that's why I have both sides to it. And as you said, through and through boy's mom, I have a 13 and 11-year-old and one on the way. That's a total shocker, but we are blessed and God has the greater plan. And yeah, been with my husband now, like you said, for 19 years. We've known each other since high school. I don't really consider us high school sweethearts because we didn't start talking to our senior year, but people still say, well, that's still technically high school sweetheart. Yeah, so I guess, but we knew each other in high school, but we were just opposites. He was the man and I was the girl who had just moved here from New York that was trying to figure out my way. And yes, I had thought he was cute, but never really ever thought that we would interact and Lord and behold, we went out Valentine's 2019-98 and we've been together still till then. Now we're married, of course. And I think we were together for about 5 or 6 years. Then we got married. So altogether we'll be married 20 years actually this summer. It's been a blessing, but it's been filled with a lot of different things. And I always tell people that, like, when you hear 20 years and you're like, wow, it is an awesome thing. But I tell people that it's filled of so many ups, downs, struggles, good times, bad times, learning each other, maturing, because we grew up together. I'm 43 right now, you know what I'm saying? And he's 42. And so we had a lot of growing to do. We got married when we were 21 and 23. He was actually 21, I was 23. So it's just all of that mixed together and just life itself. And where God takes you and where you're developing, where he's developing. So it's all a blessing, but it all has so many different parts to it.
Wow. So, and this is why she's here, y'all. So the title of this here podcast is literally The Detour. Okay. We're going to take a quick left here, come around and go down the mountain and come up. And we might have to wait a little bit. Yeah, we're going to talk about all this today because did y'all hear what she said? Like she started as a teacher and then real quick, I'm getting these feelings that I need to be doing more in this. I'm more concerned with the psychology and the mental of the individual. So let me kind of shift gears and completely, it's almost like a career change, a huge career change. Like that's a huge shift. Especially when you thought you were going to be a teacher.
Definitely. I pretended to be a teacher with my sister at school. I mean, when we were younger, we used to pretend nobody's on the line and you calling students' name, you wearing like your heels around the house. So it's just, I always associated myself with like kids and connecting on that. And like you said, as life came by, it just started feeling like, there's more, you know what I'm saying? Like God is telling me that I have something else for you. And what you're doing is good, but that's not where I'm keeping you.
So what was that process like with you embracing that? Because that's many times we always have a plan. Okay. But it may not always be God's plan. And I kind of had to settle in that. I can remember when I had gone to UCF, I graduated high school when I was 17 years old because I'm a June baby. So I've always had birthdays in the summer. I started UCF in the summer. So I was 17 for 2 days in college classes with seniors and juniors and stuff because they were taking electives. And I
Yeah.
remember just feeling out of pocket, but I knew that I was going to UCF to be a nurse. Like
Right.
that's what I wanted to do. So I thought I got through my first semester and I studied what I thought was studying and I got
Yeah.
my first C in an elective class. And then I got to fall semester and I failed human anatomy.
Mm.
Yeah, Drew, this probably gonna be it for you.
Right.
Yeah. But even coming to terms, and if you hear my little people in the background, that it's
Life happening.
Friday, so
That's how life happens. Yes, I
it
already
is
know.
what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can remember just how big of a transition and even how slow I was to kind of embrace the changes that God was making within me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I left UCF, went home for a semester because mom was like, what you're not going to do is ball out on my dime.
Mm-hmm.
Then I came back. She was like, okay, you can come back, but you're gonna be working just like everybody else. So I had been working since I was 19 years old. Even if it was part-time, I'd been working, but my first job was in the sales space,
Mm-hmm.
like inside sales on the phone, calling college professors, selling them like a virtual clicker technology. I can remember so distinctively. And I was so good at it.
Yeah.
I was so good at it. Like y'all gonna laugh, but my first job I was making $8 an hour, right? And back then that
Mm-hmm.
was good money. Everybody was like, "Are you making $8 an
And
hour? Oh, what?"
exactly what?
Then, like within like 5 months, I was making $11 an hour. That was like unheard of for a
Right.
broke college student
Right.
because I'm so good in sales. And God was showing me then, like, Dree, you got a gift of gab. You have a
Right.
gift of connecting. And there wasn't necessarily language or words for it, but I was a peopler before I
Right.
knew I was a peopler. Because that's
Right.
what sales women, sales
Oh
men,
yeah.
that's what they are. They build connections and they build
Exactly.
rapport and they get the money. They get
Mhm.
this money,
Yeah.
okay? And I had no clue that every job that I had after that was rooted in sales, an inside sales position. So now I am literally an enrollment or a sales director at
Right.
a nonprofit corporation in South Florida. And that is nowhere near healthcare. Well, I'll take that back. God was very intentional because I work for a healthcare sharing organization. So I'm
Right.
still rooted in the health. I'm still concerned about the health of people. But yeah, I am in sales and I've just accepted that this is where God has me,
Yeah.
connected in the connection of people. But I'm curious for you, like, what was your embracing season like when you had to
Mhm.
shift your literal profession to now going the more clinical route, essentially?
Right. So all of it was a bit of a shift for me because I had never been a good student. So my
Mhm.
story is a little different. I had always struggled in school. My sister is the type like she reads something, she takes the test, she passes it. I always was getting in trouble with my island parents about my chattering in class, not being focused in school. And so I had already labeled myself as the person that was like, I needed to go to school short and be done because education was not my thing. So
Mhm.
that already had me in a fear-based place about talking about getting a master's. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
obviously I had struggled through getting my bachelor's degree. So it's kind of like, now I'm going to go to school for 3 to 4 more years and then have to, get, my certifications and things like that. So that was what I was dealing with God, I think, with at the door. And even me being a teacher, me and my sister talked about it all the time too. The fact that I was even able to be a teacher because I struggled so much. So what it was is when my parents came from Haiti, I was the first child born into the family. So honestly, my belief is that Creole was my first language instead of English. So when I
Mm.
went to school, I struggled because I didn't have the basis that these other kids had that had been speaking English at home. I spoke English just fine, but my reading wasn't as strong. I was, just never doing as well as other kids to the point where I had gotten retained in third grade.
Wow.
So, in being from island families about tough and grit, and they brought, they raised you here so you could be the better. It was always a lot of pressure on me, and I was the firstborn grandchild and all the other stuff. So it was just so much, always asking God to help me to find the balance because I just felt like I couldn't do it. so that was the first thing I had to come to God about and just kind of get okay in my heart with, that I would be the kind of student that would need to put the extra time in, but I could do it. And
Okay.
once I started being okay with that, like stop watching that my sister could study and just take a test and know that, okay, you can't do that. You got to study and then get up in the morning, study some more and study before class. That was just where I had to learn to be. So that was the first part of the struggle for me. And the first part, I would say, of my detour of learning, like, you could do this, but you're just going to have to do it different. Your package was not going to look like what you thought it should. Cause I was just like, why can't I just get it?
Important.
Yeah.
That's so
Why
important.
can't I just get it like everyone else? Why do I got to study extra? Why do I have, I used to, and I'm a morning person, not a night person. So I start my papers, but as soon as 12 or 11 o'clock would come, I'm so sleepy. And I would like, I'm going to bed. I'm going to wake up at 3 in the morning. And I was like, you're not going to get up at no 3, or you going to get, girl, I would go to bed, wake up at 3, and I'd be ready for class and the paper would be done. But that was just my route. And it's us learning that what I thought it needed to look like for me, because that's how it looked like for my other friends that were in school and for my sister, that's not what it was going to look like for me. And still to this day, my route has always been different. And then I decided to, when it was time for me to go back to school, that I was going to do it for me. I'll never forget when I was finally going to go get my master's. When I was going to go across that stage, I invited my mom and everybody into the graduation. And I said, I'm driving by myself. I want that moment for myself, because I felt like that everything else I had done was to prove to them that I was a good student. Because I had been talkative in school and things like that, I was still I think I was still trying to prove to them that I was smart. I don't know if I was trying to prove to them I was as smart as my sister, because we've never really had that type of drama, but it was just something in my heart that always felt like I had something to show them. But that day and that moment that I had closed out my master's program, God had shifted my whole entire heart. And it was just about me. Like, this was for me. And so that part became so welcoming to me, because I felt like I had created this path, this career for me. It wasn't about what my mom and dad wanted for me anymore. It wasn't about proving to them, because we spend so much time in life sometimes wanting to prove to people what they thought we couldn't be. And what I realized was, like, I'm really just in competition with myself and no one else. And I don't have anything to prove. I just needed to figure out what route God had for me. So I would say those are the things I had to connect with. Those are the places I had to go into prayer about and to heal and work on for myself.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Marja. Oh, you just said a whole mouthful, because I'm still kind of settling into me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this whole, I would say the last 5-6 years, since I became an author, it's been like an expedited transformation, I feel, because that was one of the first times that I kind of stepped outside of me. Like, I wasn't even an avid reader. So why would I be writing a book?
Right.
Like, that was just abnormal to me, but I knew that God had told me that I needed to write this devotional. Like, I had it in me. Always giving somebody an encouraging word. You need to flesh this out and put it on paper. And that was one of my first surrender moments when I started YEW Enterprises.
Right.
That was another one of my surrender moments, because I had been in a leadership position. Any position that I had been in, I always kind of blazed the path for those behind me. So God was already starting to show me the leader that he was breeding on the inside of me.
Right.
So I was comfortable in that space. But when he started to shift me into, and I've always been a servant leader. Like, I've always been one of those individuals to be in the trenches with my team.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you to do something that I can't get out here and do myself. That's just who I am.
I agree with that.
It's innately in me. I'm not going to have you out here doing something that I can't go out here and replicate and do myself.
Exactly.
And I knew that. But when it started that shift of being more of the intellect, because I'll tell you, I'll be completely honest. I don't know if I've ever shared this on the podcast. I dropped out of UCF after I got my AA, and I went back to UCF. I got my AA at Valencia. I started at UCF. I went after I had flunked them classes. I went to Valencia and got my AA. My mom took me home, and that was the best decision she could have ever made for me.
For you.
For me. Because I needed that. Girl, this is a privilege. You're not going to go all out on my dime. Had lost my scholarships. I went to UCF they were paying me to go to school.
Yeah.
But I was not focused. I was lazy. I was not disciplined. In high school, I could read it, listen to the teacher, take a tenth of a note and go in there and get an A on the test. When I went to college, and I told you over that summer semester, I got a C.
Yeah.
Like, bro, what? I was in here studying for real, or what I thought was studying, and that wasn't gonna cut it no more. So I had a different experience. I was always quick and smart. But when I got to college and everybody was quick and smart, and I was like, bro, you're not that smart. That C say you weren't that smart.
Everyone's quick. I'm not moving as a fast pace as I was before.
It was a shift for me. It was such a shift for me. But when I decided to drop out of UCF, I left UCF after coming back because I got engaged. Okay. And because I had lost my scholarship previously in my first time being there, I was on the little bit of Pell Grant that I had left, that I qualified for. And I was going to have to take out student loans. And when Julius proposed, Julius already had student loans. So I'm like, I don't even know if I want to do this. Like, I'm going back to UCF out of pride. Like, I'm going back because UCF is a lot of times it stands for you can't finish.
You can't finish.
You ain't finna get me.
You can't finish.
You won't get me. I'm finna finish. And I was going to get a degree in spite. So what you said about proving to everybody else, I can be honest and real and say the reason I went back to UCF, even after being in a job where I was making, decent money at the time and was elevating, being promoted and things of that nature, it was solely pride. It was solely pride. But when I realized that my life is about to shift, I'm about to be somebody's wife. Okay, time to start thinking about your future, being wiser. What is this degree really going to do for you? If you're getting a degree that you don't even want. Like you just doing it just cause, and you're gonna pay for this degree and you may not be fulfilled in this career. So I made the difficult decision to stop going to UCF. And I always beat myself up about that. And I only have an associate's degree. And anytime I tell someone, I'm like, what you mean? That's a college degree. It's a college degree. I mean, there's some that don't even have that.
Nothing.
And anytime that I tell people what I do and the level of influence and just position and even money that I make, they're like, bruh, I got a whole master's degree. You make more money than I do. And it really started to dawn on me that the places that God wanted to take me had nothing to do with my mind, my intellect. It had everything to do with my surrender. And my decision to surrender. So when you decided to take that car drive alone because you had that aha moment that what I did, this one right here was personal, I resonate with that. I resonate so much with that because the choices and the decisions and the yeses that I've given to God about my profession when I felt like sometimes inadequate, even sometimes the rooms that I sit in today, I feel inadequate.
That's right.
Because many times I'm the only person in the room that looks like me. And that can be daunting.
That's correct.
And then having that imposter syndrome in the back of your mind, like you're not that smart. When I know I'm smart, I'm really quick, I'm really sharp. But it's when you're thinking about the paper. And God has to affirm me. He has affirmed me in many ways. Like, Lyndria, I qualify you.
That's right.
I do the qualifications. There is nothing that a piece of paper can do for you that I cannot.
That's correct.
And the minute that I settled in that thing and really started to embrace the promotion of God versus the promotion of a degree or the promotion of people, my life started to change. So much freer.
And that also is a detour. Like when you that's a mindset change. That's a detour. And I'm big on mindset. Sometimes it's just shifting that thought in your mind. But like you said, you have to reinforce it every day. This detour thing that we're talking about isn't a simple like, oh, I got it now. I've already changed it. It's a daily thing. Like you said, we sit in rooms all the time. We're invited to things all the time where it's just us and our look. is another big thing for me. Like I'm a short haired, I color my hair purple, green, red, whatever I want to do. Yep, you got locks. So that adds another different tone to the rooms that we sit in and the things that people think we should look like. You know,
for sure.
That's a heavy conversation anyways of its own when we walk into these rooms, you know what I'm saying? And, or what we should sound like, or what level of education they think we should have. So it's so important for us to reaffirm that daily. And I believe in reaffirming that in affirmations, prayer, meditation, those type of things, because of the fact that it's a mind shift and it's a daily mind shift, daily mind shift. So that is so authentically true what you said. And, you know, like you said, our parents too, like your mom obviously worked hard to get you where you were. So there was a long time, that we feel like we have some sense of honor we owe them, some sense of,
I owe it to you.
Yeah, I owe it to her. Exactly. And they kind of built that in us because they're expecting that. Exactly. Like, I didn't have this chance. I'm busting my butt to give you this chance. What you doing with it? And it's when you realize, like, I'm thankful for the opportunity, but I still have to find like what's my path and what God's calling me to do.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Oh, that's so good. That's so rich. So, and it's so funny because, and it's not funny that there's no coincidence or anything.
No,
God is so intentional.
I agree with you.
I was brushing my teeth this morning and he was like, you know, Lyndria, there's a difference between being delivered and being transformed.
That's correct.
And I thought about that thing and I was like, you know, God, you're so good, because I can remember just some of the decisions that I made without considering him, without giving him the reins, and kind of operating in my own strength, and how maybe unfulfilled I was or even am. Some of those things I'm still living in today, you know, like just some of the decisions that were just not aligned or in step with the plan of God for my life. It was Lyndria's plan and not God's plan. And it was a lot of times rooted in my inability to shift or embrace the detours that he wanted to take me on, to avoid what I felt was going to be a valley, because nobody wants to sit in a valley. And many times that's a part of the detour.
That's right.
But the valleys are many times where the safety is.
Yes.
Like we're covered in the valleys, like we're in that low place, but that allows the trouble and the danger and the inconvenience and the pain to shift and pass over us. And I don't know about you, but I done prayed this prayer too many times in my grown adult life. God, if you deliver me from this thing, just one more time. If you get me out of this one more time, you won't have to do it again.
Of course. Yeah.
And I said, you know, I'm so tired of praying the prayer of deliverance. Lord, please deliver me.
You know what I'm saying? Deliver me and transform me. And like you said, in the valleys, and that sometimes be the healing spot. We don't want to be in it. But that's when we're covered and being healed. You know what I'm saying? And being repaired. So the prayer that we really need to be thinking of is deliver me and transform me. You can deliver me, but if you don't change my heart and something in me doesn't shift, I'm going to be back here, you know? And I kind of even talk to my kids about that. Like, you're never freed from a lesson until you've shown God you've learned what he wanted you to learn from it. And like you said, I've experienced that several times in my life where you can't get free, Marja, because you're not showing God that he has transformed you from this and that you're wanting to be new. You're not honestly showing him that. And until you do that, this will show back up for you. It might look in a different package. The color might look different, but when you unwrap it, you're like, this is the same thing.
Before. I know this.
Why am I in the same thing?
For sure.
I'm not looking to be transformed.
The transforming, the aligning and the submitting of your own will to the perfect will of God is where the fullness is. And every day, even if the season looks bleak for me, every day, if this is the valley, which I know it is, there's still fullness in the valley. Like there's still provision, there's still protection in this valley that I walk through every day. And what I want to share with anybody that's in a current season of valley, where you've been doing and submitting to the will of God, and you're feeling like it's not what you thought it could be or should be or would be, just know that it's going to work out for your good.
Yeah, yeah.
It has to work out for your good.
Yeah. There'll be a light. And when you say that, that's what I think about my detour with my mom passing away. My mom had been a healthy person, had taken care of her body all her life, never been, and we don't have no history of cancer in our family or anything like that, but just suddenly popped up with breast cancer. And we went through that process with her. And my mom, she's her and my grandmother are my cornerstones for my faith and my connection with God. This lady, like, there's nothing that she didn't pray about that she didn't, like, somehow I believe, like, it's gonna come true because she praying, you know what I'm saying? My sister always talk about, like, there was no prayer warrior like her. So when she first got sick, to me, it was just totally like, it's going to be fine. She had never been sick before. She had taken care of her, she had made good choices and things like that. And so the first diagnosis we got, it showed that it was clear and everything was well, but she did decide not to do chemo. She had decided just to do radiation. So for everything that happened, that may have played a piece in it, that may have not. But it was something that she had felt like she had made a decision about with God, and she was not turning on it. I'm definitely not the type to encourage her differently. My sister wanted to encourage her differently because my sister more, of course, wanted some medical things done. But like you just said to someone, I absolutely, when my mom was diagnosed the second time and things just started going downhill so quickly, I did not see how I was going to make it through that valley. I did not see what God could even have for me, because I even remember I told my sister that morning that they called and told me she was in the hospital because she died suddenly, wasn't expected when she finally had went to the hospital. I told my sister, like, I pleaded, like, I've never pleaded so much with God for him to change something in my life. That was the biggest time I've ever had. And I told her, and I just could not understand why he could not give it to me. You know what I'm saying? So even in the valley, even in the detour, you're going to feel sometimes like your gut, your heart is like on the table, and it may even make you question some things, but you just have to hang in there and say, God, you're trying to teach me something. Me and you are not on the same page right now. Because I tell people, I talk to God like I'm talking to a friend, and it's really not realistic for me. Please help me to see what you're helping me to see. I know that it was probably testing my faith and helping me to see different things at that time. But now that I'm on the other side of things, and it's not totally, because death is, especially of a parent, is a continuous thing, and you have different stages of remorse and things like that. I do see some of the things that he was trying to give me. I can lift my head up now from the valley and perceive where he's trying to take me and what he was trying to show me and what gifts he allowed my mom to give me when she was here that allowed me to be the fullness of who I am, and that he probably felt like she had done what she had come to do, no matter what the pleading that I had was. So as you're saying to people in the valley, is just opening up your heart to asking God to show you. Like, I don't understand it. I'm not in the best of spaces. My relationship with you right now is being tested, because honestly, I've had my relationship with God. I always tell my sister this when she talks to me about like how my faith is, since I was 9 years old. Like, I know at 9, I could even distinctly remember the time I connected with that. And that was the biggest test I've ever had in my life. So that was the first time I really had felt like he really was letting me down. Like, he really didn't hear me. That was my biggest. And to go from 9 to I was 40 years old, I had to turn 40 that year. Yeah. It's been about 3 years now. It was so hard for me to understand, to grasp. I would say that's the first time that I actually was like, hey, question my faith in such a large way. You question it in such a large way. And so, yes, what you're saying is exactly correct. If you're in the valley, be okay with that rustling, be okay with that unsureness, be okay with your heart being on the table, but understanding that he will find you where you're at. He will come through. He will let you lift your head, and something will show itself. And I know some pain that I'm talking about is with my mom, and some people have even deeper things that they're dealing with. But just trusting that the continued conversations with him, whether raw, real, or emotional, have them. Because in them is where you'll find your peace. That's the only place. Like, because my mom was my to-go person. She was my faith. She would have been the person I would have talked to about this. And now she was gone. So I already had a relationship with God, but it just transformed the level I needed to have the relationship with him.
For sure. For sure. So many times especially when they're the anchor for you in your faith, what do you do when that anchor is gone? Your person, the person that you go to, what do you do when they're not here? I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's a shift. It's definitely a shift. So like you said, so if you're feeling that you're in that space, keep the faith, keep the conversations going, keep the connection going, keep whatever connects you to your moments with God, and keep it real. He's not, I know a lot of times, sometimes growing up, what we're taught sometimes is that, you can't just have a relationship with God, like when you just say things. I think the honesty of how you're feeling and where you are blesses your relationship with him, because
he already knows
that's what it is. Exactly.
He already knows your thoughts.
He already knows it. Exactly. So just put it out there. And I know I put it out there because I had been keeping a journal about everything that was happening with my mom. And every morning I was doing extra wake up early prayers. It was just, I had given so much of myself to the situation that I had felt like, it could only shift, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And when he made the decision that it wasn't going to shift, and not only was it going to shift, she was going to go away. She went away. So suddenly we had been such a close family. There's no way, the way my mom passed away, my sister and I would have ever imagined it. Neither one of us was there. Wow. And we were there for every single step of everything. We talk about that all the time. Like, boy, God just had that wrapped in a whole different looking type of package. Wow. Yeah.
Like, what do you do when, how do you cope when it doesn't look like what you thought it was going to look like? Like the prayer, like you said, you're praying, you're petitioning heaven, you're fasting, you're doing all the things.
Yeah. And one of my favorite verses have always been, lean not on thy own understanding. And that had become a core thing for me. I was like, well, that's why that verse probably was always with me, because of the fact that that's where I had to go.
Yeah, Proverbs chapter 3, 5 and 6. That's my favorite.
Yes, when I lean not on your own understanding, because there was no understanding for me, no understanding at all for how she had gotten sick, and then no understanding for how it had transpired.
Yeah,
because of the fact that not only was, she a healthy person, she was such a good person, all the things that you think, you know what I'm saying? But he wanted to bring me into a space where I could truly understand what that meant. Lean not on my own understanding. Like there was not going to be an understanding that would come from me whatsoever.
Yeah,
I needed to be patient, process, grieve, and go through all the emotions and allow him to reveal what he's still revealing. It's been 3 years and I'm still, it's your mom. So there's all different types of moments and things that you're still learning and being revealed to.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, the loss of a parent, I don't think there is any understanding. It's just acceptance.
Yeah.
It's just acceptance. I accept what God allows.
Yes.
And once you get to that place of maturity in your faith, where even if I didn't get what I prayed for, God is still good. Like to be able to say,
I know,
even if it doesn't look like I thought it was, God is still good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's very, very difficult. Very difficult.
And your detours don't stop there. Like
no, it doesn't.
40s.
Yes.
You had your kids almost out and you're starting all the way over with joy.
I'm telling you, guys, I mean, it's like we talked about, he does not stop. So my husband and I planned those boys. Like I was getting my master's. That was when I decided to go ahead and get my master's. And it was sort of like we got married and my mom was on that, if you guys get married so young, I want some grandkids. Like, come on. And Ronnie and I looked at each other and it was like the best advice he had given. He was like, let's just finish up school, do what we're going to do. Let's give it 5 years. So I was like, well, then I'm going back for my master's. And he was like, yeah. So that, you feel like you're in control because it's he gave the plan, you're going control, right? Yeah, of course, And then so as we started winding down from me graduating, we decided I would get pregnant. And God blessed us with Nishan, and then he blessed us with Namaj right after. And I remember it was Nishan's birthday party, And Ronnie was like, okay, let's just have the second one. Like, because it was not trying to turn 1. So he's like, since we waited, let's just go ahead and have the second one. And it was like, yeah. And girl, it's like, as he opened his mouth, I was already pregnant, because they're like 22 months apart, really. It's only because of school, they're 2 years apart. But one's birthday's in March, one's in December of 11, one is in March of 2010. So technically, if you count it. So that was great. And we always liked kids. So in our hearts, we always spoke about having more. But, as life is happening, marriage is happening, we're maturing, we're parents now, and just a lot of transition and ups and down, even in our relationship, or, being married, staying married, not staying married. You're changing, I'm changing, just all of that.
Evolving as people.
Exactly. And also learning to like each other again, not like each other, learning each other all over again.
Hello.
All of that. That's in that package of the 20 years. The other kid thing never transpired. But the conversation was that he was going to get it taken care of, because when the doctor asked at the time that I had an homage, we had decided no, because we thought maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
And
5 years, not
exactly. So like, it's 11 years. Our techniques are working. No baby. I'm, like you said, in my 40s. We talking about premenopause and all this other stuff. And Lord and behold, it was not premenopause. It was pregnancy. So I'm 43 now, and in 3 weeks, I will have a newborn. And that has been so, oh my goodness. It's like wrapped in a ball. It's a blessing. It's, wonderful. But as we are as women, it's also been so daunting. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So what I have been praying for and what I've been asking God to do for me is to allow me to focus on the moment and not the bigger picture, because of the fact that when I started thinking of, like, Sean's 13, like my oldest just turned 13 the first week of March, and then Namaj is 11. It's like, and I'm a different person. Ronnie's a different person. We're in a different space, and we had such a different vision. But God said, once again, he interrupted it and said, no, this is the vision I have for you guys. 20 years later, I'm going to give you guys another child,
Wow.
And it's another boy, praying healthy and strong. But everything's been going well, but definitely blowed my mind. We were just
For
totally,
sure.
we were just totally, because the other thing is, people say, well, you didn't know. So because they were thinking I was premenopause, the missing of my menstrual wasn't the biggest thing. I really didn't have any symptoms. So I said, this is a God thing. And I tell people that, and I didn't have major symptoms with the boys either, but I was younger. But this time I'm on the football field, I'm team mom. So technically I didn't find out I was pregnant till October. So I'd been pregnant for 13 weeks and didn't know.
You were through the first trimester.
Yes, girl. I was pregnant in July when I originally went to the doctor complaining about my menstrual skipping around. But because that was the conversation, she didn't even think about giving me a pregnancy test. She went straight into pre-menopause conversation with me. Yeah. And Lord and behold, when October rolled around, this is God again. I got to tell you this story real quick before we go. So my mom's anniversary of passing is October 3rd. And I always take that day off just to kind of be in my moment and whatever. Usually my sister and I are together, but this year we weren't. Something came to me when I was praying about just my heart and where I am as a mom and the things I learned from my mom and what I want to be and things like that, to take a pregnancy test. That had not even been a conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm praying about clear. I'm like, what, Holy Spirit, what you saying? So I mentioned it to Ronnie. He's like, yeah, take one. And I'm on that with him too. We like on jokey joke. I take my youngest to Walgreens to get some stuff for school. And I'm walking out. It comes to me again. You didn't buy the pregnancy test. I'm not thinking of no pregnancy test. This is just like the Holy Spirit. So we got to be intentional. We got to be listening. So I go get it, and I get the cheapest one. Okay. I bring it back to the house. I don't even tell him that I got it. And I didn't even let Namaj see I bought it. My youngest son, like he cared, but you don't even know what's going on. So I take it incorrectly. Just to let you know that this had been how long. But I don't know if I was just nervous or whatever. Long story short, next morning going to the gym, I was like, Marja, get your mind together, take this thing and do the right thing. I take it and that thing says positive. I put it in the closet. I go to the gym and say nothing. I'm like, God, no, this ain't. I'm like, this thing is functioning wrong.
See, I don't know, and y'all been trying to stress me out. See,
Girl, I was like, God, stop. This is like, this thing is wrong. Girl, so Ronnie gets home that afternoon and I say, hey, I need you to go get some pregnancy tests with the words on it. And he was like, you already take one? And I said, yeah, I think it was malfunctioning. I thought I gave him some, girl, you know, they're just over you by now. So he went to go get it. Pacing in the bathroom while I'm in the shower, and we took it. He comes to me, he's like, come out the shower. This thing says you're pregnant. We were on the ground. I took three more. Lyndria, I have all 4 tests in the bathroom in my house right now. I just could not, that's again, not wanting to accept. I was not willing to accept that thing was correct.
Listen.
That's how I'm telling you, people like this was like, I was like, that's not what she said. She said it's premenopause. How could this be? Ronnie's like, we're not taking any more. You just need to make an appointment. Like, just make a doctor's appointment. Wow. Let's find out what's going on. Girl walked in there. She didn't even want to give me a P test. She took me straight to get a sonogram done because she was like, you are about 12 or 13 weeks. I should have thought about giving you a pregnancy test when you were in here. She's like, but because we're on a whole, and
you can go ahead and announce it. You're your first trimester.
We walked out of there finding out we're having a baby in May and that I'm 13 weeks. Mind blown. But like I said, it was all God. It's all his plan, his detours, his thought pattern, his works. And whether I was open to it or not, he was working it. Back in July, you know, I'm not, nothing. And we were so busy doing so many things with the boys. You know how we look at each other like, when? Like, you know what I'm saying? Exactly. I mean, you know when, any minute, but you're still just saying it like you're a teenager. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what we felt like. Teenagers that had just like had a oops or something, like we like when, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm telling you. We just was out of our mind. I was like, this is the most irresponsible thing we've done in our life.
But it's so beautiful. Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, girl, that's
my kids are 5 and 6 now. And so they just got big boy beds. So don't judge me, y'all. My kids been sleeping in toddler beds, not because they have to, but my kids are really tall.
Yeah.
And I was going to change their beds when we moved, but I just never got around to it. They weren't complaining. And then it feels like my kids have like minute growth spurts where like they grow like an inch and a half overnight. And it literally went down that way. So my oldest was like, Mommy, I'm a little too big for my bed. I'm like, you're right, baby. Let me go get this stuff out of Amazon, ordered it the same day.
Yeah.
But when it got here and I took the beds out of the room and put them in the big beds, and then the mattresses got here, I'm like, my babies. Yes. I don't have any more of those. And it is, Marja, at least twice a night since they've been sleeping in their big boy beds, in their big twin beds. I go in there and I look at them and I do this face.
Girl, lucky tears don't roll down.
And I rub their heads at least twice a night. Yes. When I go for my pee break, I go in the room.
Yes. And I'm with you, baby. I do the same thing. Last night, because we were going to that appointment this morning for Nation, got on my knees, leaned over him and was praying. He opened up his eyes and was like, Mommy's just praying. He was like, what is going on, lady? Why are you? It's just, yes, girl. It's just so emotional, the transitions and the changes. You know what I'm saying?
You're going to get the baby scrunch. You get,
I'm not giving you no fever over the Zoom, honey. If I give you some fever, because if I tell you have some fever, get your fever taken care of early.
But you know, we're going to transition, y'all, because we will be doing this all day.
Yes.
So we're going to transition into the redefining moment, y'all. So there's just a scripture that is just so used, but it's so appropriate. It's a familiar one, Jeremiah 29:11. And I can recite this one without reading, but I'm going to read it for y'all. All right. And it says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. And every time I think about that, everything that you've shared today has just been such confirmation from even the loss of your mother and the strength and the woman that you've grown into since her passing and the level of strength that you've gained from that. That's going to serve you and any and everyone that you're connected to, any and everyone that you're going to touch, journeying into motherhood again. Like every detour, every what we feel like is an inconvenience or a derailment of your plan, God's plan is so much richer, so much greater, and so much grander. And if we just submit to that thing and let him do what he's going to do, he will blow our literal minds.
And it's key what you say, like he has the plans to prosper us, not to harm us, because we tend to feel like because it's not happening our way, because it's not looking like what we thought we had planned, or the things that we already were setting out, we think that it's going to be to hurt us, you know,
I feel like punishment.
Reminding you, like it's not to harm you, it's because there's a bigger situation. And you know, we just talked about my mom passing away, but my mother-in-law also passed away in December. Ronnie's mom, who came here to help us after my mom, and her getting sick was sudden too. So that was a whole nother thing for us too. And she was so excited about this pregnancy that she had been asking about for 2 years. And we were like, no, we're done. What are you talking about, Mima? You better go look for somebody. You know, we're going to have nieces and nephews.
Get somebody else to do it.
Girl. So when it happened, she kept saying like, I don't know if I'll be here for this, but this is part of the bigger plan for you. Wow. So, and she was such a blessing to me in so many different ways as well. So it's just like you said, like, I feel like this is part of God giving us from what has been taken. And he says, I have something new for you. I have something to renew the energy, refresh because, you know, there's nothing more newer than bringing another life into the world. And that's where I got myself to, like, yes, you're 43. This is not how it looked, but this is where you're at. And it's been an amazing experience because I'm more even in tune with myself. And like you said, I know myself better. So the pregnancy's been different. The ability to work out and do what I need to do has been different. Knowing when I need to take a nap and take breaks. It's just, I'm not 30 just trying to make it. I'm 43 and I'm much, much clearer. Working every day to learn more about who God wants me to be. Not having that totally figured out, but much, much clearer of my space.
Yeah, for sure.
And where I want to be.
For sure.
But yeah, I love that birth as well. We just talked about one of my two favorites. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
God is so good. God is so good, y'all.
He is.
We
can lean into it. Lean into it.
Yes.
Lean into
literally
it. Lean into it. And claim it over your life. Claim it over your children's life. Claim it over your family. Just like Lyndria says, going into her kids' room. I do the same thing a few times a night too. Definitely before I go to bed. And I just claim it over their lives. Like we have that power as women and mothers to just bring that energy to our children and into our homes. We carry the energy that comes into our homes while our husbands are the leader. The energy itself comes from
We are the carriers.
Yes.
We are the managers.
Yes.
For sure.
Of the house. So I always say, like, that's the energy I want my kids to walk away with when they leave this house. That's the energy I try to bring to them every day. And so if you feel like you need to get by your baby's beds and just put your hands up and ask God to intercede and come and protect and bring his blood and his covering, do that. Do whatever it is that you feel like you need to do in your home to bring the energy in which you have the power to bring, because God is invested in you. He's there with you, supporting you to bring that power in. And that's what he wants. And that's what he wants. And that's the same thing with any other detours in your life. Decide the energy that you want to be, that God wants you to have. Thinking of the things that are pleasant and good, not of the things that are stressful and negative. For sure. The positive of what is coming, not the worst scenario of it.
Absolutely. The level of oil, the price of the oil that he had already given to me is certainly more expensive oil now. My anointing and the way that I carry it, it's different.
Yes.
And it's only because of those detours and my embracing of the lane changes and the zip code changes. Literally, like, my oil and what I carry now is different.
Yeah.
It's different. So Marja, please do us a favor. Where can they find you? Where can they connect with you? Get some more of this good stuff.
I know. So the only really social media I use, I was just trying to get me on TikTok. I don't know. I haven't been, but I'm at Open Heart Zone on Instagram. That's the main way to get me. And then on there's a link for you to either, contact with me, either direct message and things like that. And if you go there, it's Open Heart Zone on Instagram. You will find me. And, if you're looking for any coaching, any speaking engagements or things like that, I work with teens, I work with women, I work with families. So those are all the different aspects of what I do. But just really like Lyndria says, I work to try to just be the light I want to have.
Yeah.
It's my key thing, like each day. How can I create an energy that I would want to be around, an energy that serves, an energy that gives? Yeah. So go on there, I put my daily posts, I do some encouragements and different things like that. And like Lyndria said, I am centering myself around coaching more at this point too. So if you're open or looking for that, reach out to me. Thank you so much, love. This has been such a blessing.
Absolutely. This has been one of my favorite conversations.
I know, it's been so good.
She's such a joy, right?
I appreciate you such a joy. So much. So are you, love. And it was great having this conversation. We got to know each other even more. Yes. Like you said, it helps us to connect. It helps us to connect. So these kind of conversations is a blessing. And what you're doing with your entire program has always been a blessing, from when you started just doing your events and now this. So you just keep going, girl. God's going to keep opening them doors. I love it, love it, love it, love it.
Thank you. Thank you. That is all for episode 4, y'all. Do yourself a solid. Make sure you follow her on Open Heart Zone. You're going to see where to get to her. We will make sure that this is not the last time she's a part of this podcast. Once I get back into the group and get acclimated for real, in this South Florida region, I've got to start doing it again, because I know that's a part of what God has for me, right? But I've got to start doing it again. But until next time, folks, my littles are knocking on the door.
They're like, it's over. I know it's time.
Over. They know how to tell time now.
Yeah.
But until next time, folks, y'all follow Marja, follow the podcast at Redefining YEW. And thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for being a part of this. Until next time, folks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Redefining YEW podcast. On today's episode, I am joined with very special guest, Mrs. Marja Drye. She and I will be talking about how to champion the tumultuous seasons of twists and turns with grace and humility. This is an episode you do not want to miss. Let's get started.